be a tachshin. And therefore, if he's yotze, he's chayav chatos. Okay. There, in explaining the machlokes, the Gemara brings 2 days. One opinion holds that Rebbe Lezer, even though he says tachshitin ein loy, agrees that klei zayin are betelim l'meis Mashiach or pliga de Shmuel, and it's Messiah that Rebbe Chia. L'vidas acheres Rebbe Lezer she'enim betelim l'meis Mashiach and the Shmuel pliga de Chia barabba. Okay, so the machlokes exactly if Rebbe Lezer holds they could Chia barabba or Shmuel, or whatever the lumdus is there. Our das chachamim, the chachamim who say that in yotze chayav chatos. If the Chachamim say Ein ela lignai, shenemer v'kis chaboisen li'itim, so the Chachamim clearly hold that the Klei Zayin betelel l'mismashiach. But the Chelim yotze b'sayvis chayav chatos. That's clear in the Shittas Chachamim. V'Arambam poisek et as Chachamim that it's a gnai. Shesei v'choladis leik Shmuel. So in other words, here, the Rambam in Hilchas Shabbos is paskening that the Nevi'im were nisnabu l'moisa Mashiach. So in the one place, the Rambam paskens ein ben elam hazeh l'moisa Mashiach el l'shibu b'malchus bilvad, which is Shmuel. And then in Hilchas Shabbos and also in Hilchas Shuvah, we say the Nevi'im were nisnabu l'moisa Mashiach l'chaydo. Or he says that the Klei Zayin are going to be bottled l'moisa Mashiach. And they're from Yotze Chayav Chatos. So if you hold a Yotze Chayav Chatos, you're holding the lost love. You won't be a Klei Zayin. So this is a stira in the Psakim L'Chayda of the Rambam. Whether you hold the lost love, you Moshe Mashiach, there won't be a Klei Zayin, or there will be Klei Zayin. There will be these of the miracles of a Kitzu Chabeis and Leitim V'Chanisisei and Mizmaris. There won't be any need for warfare, or not. If I hold that loss, that Limeisa Mashiach, there's going to be lo yivata bittul and any there won't be bittul menagi shaleilam, and it should be machas bilvad. That's when you need to have warfare. There won't be shimon machis, but to say that you don't need any arms, that's a bittul menagi shaleilam. Okay. So the is a stira in this. Okay. So if we can answer the stira of in the Rambam, we'll also be able to understand how the Rambam learned Pshat, what's going to be lost of Lavoi, that V'gor Zevim Keves is a mashal b'chida, yet the Chazal say the Yelani Strak Kitunu Pedis, Bishbaiti Chayom Min Haaretz, and we'll also understand this stira. And then you understand this, the Rebbe says, takes it weiter. L'cheira, Neistes, Eich Kaisev HaRambam, Shebimesim Sheikh Li'ibasl Davim Minagu Shaleilam, V'yishum Chidus Ma'aseh Breishis. And at the same time, he wrote the Yud Gimel Ikrim. And he said, Ikrim, Yud Gimel Ikrim, the Rambam writes in his Pirush Mishnayos and Sanhedrin, and one is Shetiyat Chis HaMesim. So, and it's one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim of Yiddishkeit. So, Zeh Bittul Menagi Shaleilam Mechidus Ma'aseh Breishis. Okay. Now, Be'emes, the Rebbe is going to say, that it's not in the Rambam itself. So he says on something, Bishleim lefi hashites, she'elam atchiu, elam haba, which is, in other words, there's a big machlokes between the Ramban and the Rambam. Where's soif matan schoren shal tzadikim? When is the ultimate reward of tzaddikim? Elam haba. This Elam haba, when does it take place? Is it an Elam haba is a world that is post Tchias HaMesim? That after Tchias HaMesim, then all the neshamas go to Elam haba, and that's Tachlish Schar Shal Tzadikim, and that's the Rambam holds, and the Ramban and the Ravid hold that Elam Atchia is Elam haba, that Elam haba will be time of Tchias HaMesim. So he says, according to the Rambam and the Ravid, the Tachlish is big gufim. So Tchias HaMesim he Eifo Yin Acher Lo Chelik Yimois HaMashiach. So then Eilam Tchias HaMesim is post Yimois HaMashiach. Good. So it's nicht as a schwere Kasche. Aber lefi Shatas HaRambam. She'elam Haba Hainu Elam HaNeshamas B'li Guf. And the Rambam himself holds that Elam Haba is a world without Neshamas, post Tchias HaMesim. V'Eilam HaTchiyah Eirei Tachla Shleimus HaSchar, says the Rambam. So therefore we have to say that Tchias HaMesim Tiyah Behazman Utkufa, that's before Eilam Haba. When is that? Yimois HaMashiach. Lifnei Shanesham B'Eilam Haba. So in other words, according to the Rambam, Lishita say that Eilam Haba is after Eilam HaTchiyah, and Eilam HaTchiyah has to be there for Yimois HaMashiach. Nimtza Shelefi Shitas Rambam Yechidish B'Mayis HaBreish Yimois HaMashiach. So here we looked at now, we went a step further. We said according to the Rambam, we have a stira in the Psakim. And now we have another thing that is one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim is Tchias HaMesim. And according to the Rambam, it appears that it's going to happen in the time of what's called Yimois HaMashiach, not in the time of Eilam Haba. Even though the Rambam right, so here's the Chiddush that Rebbe lays down. And the Rebbe is going to say that we have to say, Pasha, there's no other way of learning this, is that there has to be two periods in Yimois HaMashiach. There has to be a period in Yimois HaMashiach where then it's going to be Ein Ben Eilam Hazeh Yimois HaMashiach Ela Shibud Malchus Bilvad. And that's going to be one Tkufa. And that's going to be Ikin Yonev of Melech HaMashiach, that has to be. And then there's going to be a second kufa where Tchias HaMesim is going to take place. And that's also Muchrich. And then we're going to answer all the machlokes and all the difficulties that can be understood based on this Yisod. Ubehechlech leimar, shelefi HaRambam is shnei inyanim sheinu, v'chein bezmanim sheinu. Yes, there's a time of Yimois HaMashiach that is related in Bias Mashiach. And that is going to be a Tkufi, he's going to say later, but it's Ein Ben Eilam Hazeh Yimois HaMashiach. Elo Shivimah. V'yeshnei Inyim V'zman Nesef, there's a further time, Asher Yitvasev La'achli Tkufas HaScholos Yimois HaMashiach. After you have Bias HaMashiach, and what Mashiach has to do as part of Bias HaMashiach, you have a further step, which is later on. And then you'll have additional things that will happen. And that second time, you'll have Shinim Minhagi Shalayla. So that's why the Rambam says, if the Lashon is, Al Ya'al Adas, in Perek Yud Aleph, Sha'melech HaMashiach tzarech lasis oisus u'moipsim, and the Rambam says, Oy Mechaya Mesim. He's saying clearly the Mashiach doesn't have to. Why does he spell out Mechaya Mesim? Because these things will happen, but Mashiach, Melech HaMashiach doesn't have to do it as part of being Melech HaMashiach. Okay, now he's going to quickly explain how this works. First of all, brings L'choyres in the Rambam. Because when the Rambam brings in the beginning, the Rambam before, when he says that Mashiach doesn't have to doesn't have to make miracles, he brings a Eichacha from Ben Koziva. That Ben Koziva didn't make a miracle, and Abakiva and Chochach Meidei believe that he's Mashiach. But here, that there doesn't have to be any miracles in the Tkufa of Yimois HaMashiach, it doesn't bring a proof. And what's the reason for that? The Pashtus. Because once we describe that Mashiach himself, what the Gedder is, that it's Shleimus Teda Mitzvahs, and he doesn't have to make a miracle, so can move it into Yimois HaMashiach, it doesn't have to be a miracle. Let's go over here in the next page, Shekain, page Yud Gimel, second to last paragraph, Shekain. Im hageder, the Yimois HaMashiach, hayebitel min hagishaleim mechidus ma'aseh b'reishis, If you say that although Mashiach doesn't have to make a miracle, but Yemaisa Mashiach necessitates Chiddush b'Maisa basis, so then you're saying Mashiach has to bring miracles. Mashiach If you're saying you might Mashiach miracles, so Mashiach, since you said the Mashiach doesn't have to make a miracle, so you can move in that you might Mashiach also doesn't have to include miracles. Okay. So in Oishud Aleph, he says, so now we understand what's going on over here. In Perek Yud Aleph, the Rambam sets out what Mashiach is al pi halacha. That in Yoni is Chazorah of Shleimus, bringing Shleimus and Mitzvahs and Hilchos HaTorah. And for that he has to be a Melech, and he has to be by the Mikdash and Mekabel Yisrael in order to have the Shleimus and Mitzvahs and Hilchos HaTorah. And then in Perek Yud Beis he describes in order for to have Shleimus Mitzvahs and Hilchos HaTorah, the world also has to be in a certain way. It has to be in a way that there's no milchamas and those things, and no even can sit and learn Torah. Okay. So this is the Haggadah of how the Rambam learns. In Oishud Beis, the Rebbe says, "Api kola now, Yuvin gam shittas Rambam shaychusim shalapsukim amori chazal l'sheim negel yudim delos." Now we can understand the shitta of the Rambam in regards to the different psukim. When we talk about the Nevi'us that describe Mashiach himself, what Mashiach will do directly, and the outcomes that will be there as a direct result of his coming. So the Rambam learns in that, there's no bittul minhag shalayla. So therefore, where the pasuk says that Mashiach will come, and then it says that it flows from his coming. So to that the Rambam says it's a mashal d'chida. And that's what the Rambam refers to, those psukim that talk about the outcomes, direct outcomes of Mashiach's coming. That's going to be a mashal d'chida. Those sukkah that are not direct, are not describing what will happen in the world as the direct result of his coming. And that includes the and the So to this the Rambam says, no, that's not a mashal. That is kipshutai. Why? Because that will happen at the later period. Not the period that's directly coming as Yemaisa Mashiach, and Yemaisa Mashiach, which is going to be Shleimus and Data Mitzvahs. That's a later time. And now we can also understand the Radvaz. The Radvaz says that in Eretz Yisrael there will be Sheyitanu Peiris. And the Teres Kedem says, Yilani Strakas Yiduniyas Eisat Peiris. So the Teres Kedem is talking at a time that's after Bias Mashiach. And that taka will be a miracle. In the Gemara, when it says Ilani Saksha Eretz Yisrael Sheyitanu Peiris, that's going to be perhaps a ness that's going to happen according to this man, the Amarik Subis, which the Rambam doesn't necessarily pass like that, will be in Eretz Yisrael. So now we can also answer the Lechem Mishnah's question. The Lechem Mishnah says that we understand the Psak and the Rambam. The Rambam Taka holds Ein Ben Elam Mazel Meisam Mashiach and the Shibud Malchus Milvad. Why we say that Klei Zayin is a Gnai, and therefore because they're going to be bottled by Meisam Mashiach, that's talking in the second Kufa. But that's enough for Heichacha to show that it's Gnai. The fact that in the second Kufa it's going to be bottled shows it's something that's unwanted. And therefore, Yotzachai Chatas. Okay. Okay. The last nakuda we have to explain here is Oyster Zion. Where do the Rambam take such a chidush? Like, what was machriach the Rambam? Till now we said that it has to be tzmuchich in the Rambam. The Rambam accepts that be Moshe Mashiach, even though biyosei won't be kosher to nisim. There has to be a time when there will be such a ness, chiyas amesim and so on. But where did the Rambam take such a thing? So to this, the Rebbe brings from Migeres Chiyas HaMesim, and Migeres Chiyas HaMesim is an interesting thing. The Rambam writes that when he writes in the Rambam that it's a moshel v'chida, ein dvarenu zeh hechleti, shein moshel. And the Rambam says, v'yitachin sheyiskaimu kipshutam, which is an interesting thing. The Rambam passes in el moshel bechida, and then in Geras and Chiyas HaMesim he says that perhaps it is kipshutam. What's in nafkin minim? Why would you say that perhaps it will be kipshutam and the Rambam still passes that it's moshel bechida? So to this the Rebbe brings the Gemara. The Gabi says Zachu, it's going to be in an anishmaya. Lo Zachu ani bereichav alachamoy. Yeah, the Gemara in Sanhedrin. So there's two types of Bias HaMashiach. There's a time when it's going to be Zachu, and that's going to be miraculous, and Ani Shmaya, and it's Loi Zachu, it's going to be Ani Bereichav Alachameir. And there's many in Yonah like this. So in other words, so then based on this, the Kitzer, when you talk about halacha is something that has to happen. Now that could happen. Halacha is the minimum that has to happen. So therefore, the Rambam says what the minimum is that it has to be is going to be the halacha of, it's going to be an eifin of loizachu, and that's going to be ein ben el mazeh, the Mesa Mashiach el shibus malchus obad. And then once you have ein ben el mazeh, and then you're going to have, shleimus and data of mitzvahs. So immediately you're going to have a matzav of zachu. If later you're going to have a matzav of zachu, so then you have to have a time when the miracles of the tkufa of zachu happen. So that's why, according to the Rambam, he's machriach, the takel halacha, the basis has to be ein ben el mazeh el shibud malchus obad. It's possible to be in miracles if it's zachu. But I'll call upon him once when Mashiach comes and you have shleimus atera mitzvahs, then for sure you'll have a tkufa of zachu, because then there'll be shleimus atera mitzvahs, and then you'll not have a second tkufa when there'll be miracles. And therefore, the Rambam learns that the Rebbe explains the Rambam that there's a two tkufas, a ta tkufa when you have to have a pialacha, where it has to have Mashiach has to come. And that the minimum is going to be in an eifin of loizachu, and then it's going to be only the difference is going to be elakim minhagi noyig, and the only difference is shibud malchias. And then you have, it can happen also in the beginning, but at least it'll happen later on, eifin of zachu, and then it's going to be lani srak sheyasu peiros, and then it's going to be the kisucha based on the itim, and it's going to be chiyas hamesim. And this is all part of Yemei Mashiach before Eilam Atchiyah, according to Shittas Rambam. They brought also the Shittas Ramban and the Ravid that Eilam Atchiyah is that Eilam Haba includes also Eilam Atchiyah. Okay, outcome. Mirza Hashem, next week we'll do the last siman in the Debar.